My daughter's voice still haunts me. "Dad, you've always rescued me before. Why not this time?" Her words weren't just desperate. They were accusing, venomous, as if I had betrayed her by refusing to save her once again. She stood in the doorway of her luxury condo in downtown Phoenix, barefoot on marble floors she hadn't paid for, clutching shopping bags that still had price tags dangling from them. Her fiancé, a smooth-talking parasite named Derek, hovered behind her with a smirk, certain I'd cave like I always did. But this time I didn't. And what followed shattered her world and mine forever. If you've ever been told you're too soft, or if you've watched someone you love spiral because you couldn't say no, then stick with me. This isn't just a story about revenge, it's about the hardest choice a parent can ever make. Hit that subscribe button, like this video if you believe in tough love, tell us in the comments where you're listening from, and get ready, because this is the story of how I let my daughter fall, only to watch her rise stronger than I ever dreamed. My name is Richard Hayes, and I've spent 64 years building a fortune that could have let my only daughter, Sophia, live without lifting a finger. And for most of her life, that's exactly what I allowed. Sophia grew up surrounded by everything money could buy. Designer clothes before she could walk, horseback lessons at 8, a car for her 16th birthday that cost more than most people's mortgages. I thought I was showing her love, but in reality I was building her a cage made of silk, polished steel, and entitlement. Her mother, Linda, warned me. She'd say things like, "Richard, she's learning dependency, not responsibility." But I waved it off. I was blinded by my guilt. Guilt that my business trips kept me away too often. Guilt that I missed piano recitals and soccer games. So I wrote checks in place of apologies. Sophia knew it too. By college, when she racked up $10,000 in credit card debt on luxury handbags and parties, she didn't cry when I confronted her. She just looked at me calmly and said, "You'll fix it, Dad, you always do." And I did. Every single time. That pattern lasted into her late 20s. She moved to Phoenix, met Derek, and started living a life even I couldn't afford to bankroll forever: penthouse rent, endless shopping, rooftop parties, investment projects that always seemed suspiciously vague. Whenever money ran out, she'd call me, sometimes crying, sometimes furious, always expecting me to swoop in. And I did until the day I finally understood. I wasn't helping her. I was destroying her. Derek was the kind of man who knew how to walk into a room and drain it dry without anyone noticing. Smooth talking, good looking in that way that fades fast once you catch the hollowness behind the smile. From the beginning, I suspected he wasn't with Sophia for love. He wasn't her anchor, he was her enabler. And together they were a storm waiting to happen. One evening I got the call. Sophia's voice was trembling. No, not trembling, performative, like an actress trying too hard. "Dad, Derek and we've found this incredible investment opportunity. We just need you to back us, and we'll triple the return in 6 months." I leaned back in my study chair, staring at the darkening Phoenix skyline. The same skyline she thought she owned. My lawyer, Daniel Mercer, sat across from me, already shaking his head. Daniel had seen the documents Derek pushed in front of us, thinly veiled scams dressed up in fancy graphs. "Richard," Daniel muttered once Sophia hung up, "this isn't an investment. It's a trap. If you put a dime into this, you're handing it to Derek and saying goodbye." And that's when the idea struck me. For years I had saved her, shielded her, enabled her. But maybe the only way forward was to let the walls close in. Not to harm her, but to finally give her a chance at reality. I called Sophia the next day. My voice was calm, but inside I was shaking. "Honey, I'm not transferring another dollar. Not for this, not for anything. You and Derek need to handle your finances." There was silence. Then an explosion. You're abandoning me? After everything? After all these years? I could hear Derek in the background, whispering, feeding her anger like fuel to a fire. The next week unraveled like clockwork. The condo association came first, demanding overdue fees. Credit cards froze. The investment Derek had bragged about collapsed into smoke. And just like that, the life Sophia thought was indestructible began to crumble. I didn't gloat. God knows I didn't feel triumphant. I sat in my office at night, staring at the phone, listening to the unanswered voicemails she left, each one more frantic than the last. Dad, please, they're saying we're late on the condo. Dad, you don't understand. Derek's stressed. I can't handle this alone. And finally, Dad, Derek's gone. He just left. He said he can't do this without money. That one broke me. I drove to the condo 2 days later, standing across the street as movers carried out her furniture, her designer dresses shoved into black trash bags. Sophia stood barefoot on the curb, her mascara streaked, clutching a lamp like it was a lifeline. I wanted to run to her, to scoop her up like I did when she was 5 and scraped her knee. But Daniel's voice echoed in my mind. If you save her again, she'll never learn. So I stayed hidden, watching, my chest heavy, my throat burning. This was my daughter, my only child, and I was letting her world collapse. When the last truck pulled away, Sophia was left with nothing but 2 suitcases and a silence she'd never known. Derek had vanished, her friends stopped calling, and the city she once ruled over didn't even blink. That night, she checked into a dingy motel on the outskirts of town. The next morning, she started making calls not to me, but to strangers who had advertised small studio rentals. And that's how Sophia Hayes, former queen of marble floors and rooftop pools, ended up renting a cramped, dusty room above a taco shop. I knew because Daniel kept me informed, and each report felt like both punishment and salvation. Sophia Hayes had fallen, and for the first time in her life, no one was there to catch her. The first morning in the studio above Taco El Sol hit Sophia like a bucket of cold water. The walls were thin. Every clatter from the kitchen below echoed through her tiny apartment. The floorboards creaked with each step, and the smell of sizzling carne asada seeped up from the restaurant, clinging stubbornly to her new reality. She had once thought that small inconveniences like this were character-building exercises for other people, but now they were her life. Her phone buzzed with notifications, credit card alerts, past due bills, eviction threats, but she silenced them. No one was coming to bail her out this time. By noon, Sophia was behind the counter at Nordstrom, nervously adjusting the name tag that felt heavier than any designer necklace she had ever worn. She had spent 28 years in luxury, where money erased friction, smoothed edges, and polished mistakes into invisibility. Here, friction was all she had, and mistakes? They were visible to everyone, including herself. A customer, clearly wealthy, gave her a look she recognized all too well. The same look Sophia used to give sales associates in Manhattan and Scottsdale. Pity. The woman hesitated. You must be new. Sophia forced a smile, her cheeks burning. Yes, ma'am, how can I help today? Her days were long. The Nordstrom shift drained her physically, but nights at Denny's shredded her dignity. Grease, slick floors, drunk college students demanding extra ketchup, tips and wrinkled singles. She quickly learned that no one cared who she had been or who her father was. She was just another server, invisible unless she slipped. The humiliation was brutal. She learned to wear thrift store clothes, cook simple meals, and budget beans and rice. Her Instagram feed, once a shrine to penthouse parties and champagne bottles, sat untouched for months, ignored, like the life she had abandoned. Yet even in the worst moments, subtle sparks of pride began to flicker. When she counted out every cent to pay her first month's rent, balancing receipts and bills with trembling hands, she felt a strange satisfaction. No one had handed her that money. She had earned it slowly, painfully, with every exhausted hour. The physical exhaustion mirrored her psychological transformation. Once she had thought sleepless nights were glamorous cramming for exams, planning parties, chasing investments. Now she learned that real fatigue was the steady thrum of muscles used honestly, the ache of back and shoulders after hours on her feet, the mental drain of budgeting every single dollar. Her coworkers became her unexpected teachers. Maria, the night shift server at Denny's, teased her relentlessly at first, calling her Princess Pants. But Maria was tough, fair, and had survived far worse. She showed Sophia how to manage a till, how to diffuse angry customers without crying, and most importantly, how to endure humiliation with grit rather than resentment. At Nordstrom, Jessica, a fellow sales associate, shared her own struggles: student loans, family obligations, unpaid internships. Listening to Jessica, Sophia realized she had never actually known anyone outside her bubble. She began to ask questions, to listen instead of perform. Empathy, something she had purchased for years in the form of gifts and donations, now had to be earned through conversation and genuine interest. Small victories piled up quietly. The first time a customer asked for her by name, thanking her for being patient and helpful, Sophia felt a rush she hadn't experienced with any luxury purchase. She remembered her father's words from years ago when she had first begged him to pay a debt for her. "You won't understand pride until you earn it." But earning it came slowly. Each shift left her body trembling and her hands raw. She tripped carrying trays of food, apologized profusely to drunk patrons, and had to endure snickers when her uniform didn't fit like the designer label she once adored. She cried silently in the bathroom at Denny's, wondering if her life would ever feel whole again. Yet every night, as she returned to the tiny studio above the taco shop, she carried a notebook. Not a diary of despair, but a ledger tracking her expenses, her tips, her savings. Slowly, methodically, she began to grasp the value of each dollar, the weight of her choices, and the first glimmer of control over her own life. Humiliation became education. Exhaustion became discipline. And for the first time in her life, Sophia Hayes began to see that the world didn't revolve around her, but she could revolve around her own effort. And somewhere in the back of her mind, the distant thought of her father lingered, like a shadow she couldn't escape. He wasn't helping her. He had chosen absence over intervention. For months, she would oscillate between anger at him, fear of failing, and a begrudging recognition that this absence, this withdrawal, was exactly what she needed to survive. The transformation, painful and humiliating as it was, had begun. Sophia's routine had settled into a rhythm of exhaustion and survival. Nordstrom by day, Denny's by night. Beans and rice, thrift store dresses, endless shifts, endless mistakes. Yet beneath the fatigue, a subtle change had begun. She was learning to see herself, not as a spoiled heiress, but as someone accountable for every choice she made. And then came the letter. It arrived on a Wednesday, slipped under the door of her tiny studio above Taco Il Sol. The envelope was simple cream-colored, no fancy monogram, no hint of wealth. She recognized her father's handwriting immediately. Her first instinct was fury. How dare he, after everything? Tearing it open, the words hit her like a punch. "Sophia, I realize now that my love has crippled you instead of raising you. I have given money where you needed lessons. I have protected where I should have guided. Love without respect is pity. I cannot give you either anymore. But I can give you this, the chance to earn your own respect. Learn, fail, grow, and remember, your strength is yours alone, not bought or inherited. She sank onto the edge of her bed, the letter trembling in her hands. Her vision blurred. For the first time, her tears weren't about fear or loss or betrayal. They were about understanding, painful, raw, and transformative. That letter became her talisman. She carried it everywhere, reading it in the bathrooms of Nordstrom, on her break at Denny's, even in the quiet moments before sleep. It wasn't a reprieve, it was a challenge. And slowly, she began to respond. The first step was books. She found used copies of financial literacy guides at the local library. Budgeting 101, Investing for Beginners, The Psychology of Money. At first, the numbers made her dizzy. She had never budgeted a day in her life. But the more she read, the more she understood the true power of self-reliance. At Nordstrom, she watched her coworkers' habits, learning more than she had ever learned in college lectures. How Jessica negotiated with difficult customers. How Maria handled stress without snapping. Sophia started asking questions, listening instead of assuming she already knew everything. She asked coworkers about their goals, their debts, their triumphs. Empathy, something she had purchased for years in gifts and luxury, was now being cultivated through genuine human connection. The first tangible success came quietly. A customer struggling to find a gift for his wife left a glowing note for the manager praising Sophia's patience, insight, and honesty. Her manager called her aside. "Sophia, this is exceptional. You're earning trust, not tips. Keep it up and we'll talk about a promotion." For the first time, her heart swelled with something real pride earned, not borrowed. She went home that night, held her father's letter, and whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe I can do this." Weeks later, she wrote back. Her words were raw, tear-stained, and honest. "Dad, I hated you for letting me fall. I still do sometimes, but I understand now. I am learning what it means to be responsible. I want to earn my own life, not live on yours. Thank you for letting me fail. I hope one day I can make you proud." It was the first time she had admitted her flaws openly, not to friends, not to Derek, not even to herself. And in that confession, she began to feel the first stirrings of independence. Sophia's transformation wasn't instantaneous. The first promotion at Nordstrom wasn't handed to her, it was earned. She learned to budget her wages, save a little each week, and even bought a second-hand laptop to track her finances. Derek faded into irrelevance, a ghost of entitlement she no longer tolerated. She refused his calls, blocked his texts, and for the first time in years her decisions were entirely her own. Her father watched quietly from Costa Rica. Daniel Mercer sent brief updates, each one like a pulse. Sophia completed first month of independent rent, working 2 jobs, showing grit. Each update was a mix of relief, pride, and anticipation. Richard Hayes had let go of control, and in doing so had given Sophia the only thing money could never buy: self-respect earned through struggle. The awakening wasn't just financial, it was personal. Sophia Hayes, once the spoiled daughter of a wealthy father, was becoming someone who could face the world on her own terms. She had survived humiliation, exhaustion, and betrayal. She had learned empathy, resilience, and the intoxicating, terrifying satisfaction of earning her own life. For months, Linda and I kept our distance. We were living quietly in Costa Rica, far away from Phoenix, watching from a distance as Sophia's world shifted. It wasn't easy. Every instinct in me wanted to rush back, rescue her, throw her a rope when I knew she was drowning. But I also knew that if I did, she'd never learn to swim on her own. By the 5th month, something inside me said it was time. Time to see if she had truly begun to stand on her own 2 feet. I packed a single bag, boarded a flight, and touched down in Phoenix without telling her. No driver, no assistant, no shadow of the life she once clung to. Just me, a plain shirt, worn jeans, and sneakers. The first time I saw her was inside Nordstrom, where she'd taken on extra hours. I stood at a distance, blending in with the crowd. And I watched how she spoke to customers, how she moved with a mix of nerves and newfound purpose. She didn't notice me, not at first. I stayed quiet, letting her be who she had become without the weight of my presence pressing on her. When her shift ended, I followed discreetly, keeping enough distance so she wouldn't feel shadowed. She boarded a bus, then walked to that little studio above the taco shop, the same kind of place she once swore she'd never set foot in. The smell of frying tortillas drifted up the stairwell. I climbed slowly behind her and stood at her door. For a long moment I didn't knock. My hand hovered there, unsure if I was ready. Finally I tapped lightly. She opened the door, and when her eyes met mine, time froze. "Dad?" she whispered, as if she didn't quite believe it was real. "It's me," I said softly. "I wanted to see the real you." Her apartment was small, cramped, but it radiated something I hadn't seen in her before: ownership. She had budgeting books stacked neatly on her desk. A pot of beans simmered gently on the stove. On the wall, one framed photo from her graduation, the edges worn. There was no pretense here, just life, hard-earned, simple, and hers. We sat down to eat. No restaurant, no chef. Just beans, rice, and a little cheese. And it was the most meaningful meal I'd had with my daughter in years. I didn't come to hand her a check. I didn't come to erase her struggle. Instead, I came with a proposition. "Sophia," I said, "I've been working on a project teaching financial literacy to young adults. I want you to join me. But understand something, this isn't charity. If you don't pull your weight, if you don't treat this like a job, you're out." Her eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen since she was little: fear, yes, but also determination. "I want to try," she said carefully, "but I think I'll keep my Denny shifts for a while. I need to know I can still stand on my own." I nodded, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were finally seeing each other clearly, not as father and spoiled daughter, not as benefactor and dependent, but as two people ready to build something new. As I left her apartment that night, I paused at the door. "Sophia," I told her, "I'm proud of you. Not for what you've been given, but for what you've earned. And this is only the beginning." For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of disappointment. I felt hope. Real, grounded hope. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. To hear the next story, just click one of the videos that are going to appear on your screen after this message. Thanks for watching.